I make lunch for my husband, Sean, every day. Sean always smiles happily and says, "It was delicious," and bring back an empty lunchbox. That's why I've been working hard to research cooking. However, something triggered me to start doubting Sean. To clear the cloud of doubt, I investigated and uncovered a certain truth. At that time, Sean praised my lunchbox as usual. The lunch was delicious today too. To which I replied, "Oh, you managed to eat it all, huh? What?" Please enjoy the dramatic development that follows. My name is Amy Morgan, I'm 28 years old. I quit my job when I got married, and now I spend my days as a housewife, dedicating myself to household chores. Sean and I got married 2 years ago, and we live in an apartment. My hobby is cooking, and I research delicious dishes for my husband, who loves to eat. I also make homemade lunch for him every day, and Sean always finishes them. Amy, the fried chicken in today's lunch was delicious. The potato salad was perfect too, really fluffy. Thank you so much always. Really? I'm glad you liked it. I found a good recipe, so I tried making the potato salad. We don't have children yet, but my husband and I are living happily. I was convinced that such life would continue. However, the time I spent with Sean began to decrease. His work became busier, and he spent less time at home. Apparently, there's a big project going on at his company, and all the employees were very busy. Sean, too, is caught up in work, and the days he comes home late at night have increased. Sometimes, he works overnight at the company and comes home in the morning. The number of business trips has increased, and he seemed clearly tired. On his days off, he locks himself in his room and rests. Our conversations also became somewhat distracted. Amidst these days, Sean apologized to me with a sense of guilt. "Amy, I'm sorry. I've left everything about the house to you. I want to help as much as I can, but I'm just too tired from work, and I can't seem to find the energy. Don't worry about it. It's only natural you're tired after working so hard. Take your rest on the weekends. Thank you. I'm really glad I married Amy. Your delicious cooking and lunchboxes are also a motivation for work. Once the company settles down, let's go on a trip somewhere." It was lonely with Sean not being home much, but if it was for work, it couldn't be helped. He was working hard, so I should support him. As he worked hard, I put my heart into cooking and making lunch every day. However, something triggered me to start doubting Sean. I don't want Sean to be picky with food. So I try to cut up ingredients he dislikes into small pieces and mix them with meat. Or I try to season them in a way that he'll eat them. However, there's one ingredient Sean absolutely cannot eat, no matter how it's cooked. That is bell pepper. I feel bad for Amy, but I just can't handle that smell. I can't eat it raw, and I can't even eat it when it's cooked. Please, don't put bell pepper in the dishes or my lunch. Seeing him make such a disgusted face, I couldn't force him. So, I tried not to include bell peppers in the lunchboxes or dishes as much as possible. One time, I accidentally put bell peppers, which Sean dislikes, into his lunch. I put in the bell peppers focusing on the color, and later realized that he dislikes them. By then, Sean had already left for work with his lunchbox. I thought about informing him through Messenger or a call, but he was already busy. And I wondered if contacting him about this would be appropriate. After some thought, I decided to apologize when Sean came home. However, when I checked the lunchbox after he came home, it was empty as usual. I was impressed that he ate the bell peppers. It might seem exaggerated, but Sean's dislike for bell peppers was that intense. No matter how small they were cut or mixed with delicious meat, he would firmly refuse to eat them. I spoke. "Sean, you ate the bell peppers for today's lunch." I was worried because I accidentally included them. But I was surprised to see the lunchbox empty. I thought it would be impossible. When I casually mentioned this, Sean froze and exclaimed, "What?" When I asked, "What's wrong?" he hurriedly replied, sorry. I was just tired from work and not thinking clearly. I've become able to eat bell peppers a little. After all, being picky as an adult isn't good." Sean was avoiding eye contact and stuttering as he spoke. Afterward, he quickly said, "I'm tired, I'm going to rest," and went back to his room. Sean's behavior made me feel uneasy. It's good that he's become able to eat things he disliked, but why take such a guilty stance? I couldn't come up with an answer, so I decided to put it aside for now. Looking back, I should have delved deeper into this feeling of unease. A few days after starting to feel uneasy about my husband. That day, I had finished all my chores and was spending my time relaxing. I was browsing the SNS of a follower who introduces homemade cooking. I had been told by a friend before, "Why don't you post your cooking on SNS?" According to my friend, Amy's cooking is great. I want more people to know about it. I also refer to the cooking posted on SNS sometimes. While I'm not uninterested, I was a little scared. I've heard that you can get tangled up with weird people on SNS. And I don't think my cooking is that valuable. So, for now, I decided to look around other people's cooking SNS before deciding. In doing so, I accidentally came across a tweet. Today, I saw a man throwing away the entire contents of his lunchbox at the company. He's from a different department, but he's supposed to be married. So the lunch was probably made by his wife. Throwing away his entire lunch, how bad must their relationship be? That's pretty awful, as I read the tweet. However, the moment I saw the photo uploaded with it, I froze. It was a photo of a trash can with the contents of a lunchbox thrown away. The problem was the contents. Omelette and hamburger, cherry tomatoes, salad, and bacon-wrapped asparagus. All of them were exactly what I had put in Sean's lunchbox. My heart raced. That can't be possible. Even so, I couldn't look away from the photo of the trash can. It's not impossible that someone else's lunchbox coincidentally matched. But not just one part, everything, including the egg with carrot and the heart-shaped hamburger, was the same. There was no mistake, it was the lunch I made for Sean. I spent the rest of the day feeling unsettled until my husband returned home. As soon as he came home, I checked the lunchbox, and it was empty. Normally, I would be happy, but I couldn't feel that way now. I casually brought up the subject while Sean was eating dinner. "How were the hamburger and omelet today? Did you notice my little tricks?" Of course, it was delicious today too." "The trick, huh?" "The sauce on the hamburger was rich and good. The omelet was salty, just perfect. Actually, there was another trick I did." "Did you notice?" "Huh?" I remember it was delicious." "Was there something else?" "No, it was just a joke." "Sorry. I was just teasing." "If you enjoyed it, then that's great." I was convinced by Sean's words. He indeed hadn't eaten the lunchbox. He didn't mention the shape of the hamburger. And there was no sauce since the flavor was already in the hamburger itself. The omelet is usually salty, but the one I put in the lunchbox was sweet. However, mentioning this to my husband now would probably lead to him evading the issue. Worse, he might destroy the evidence. So, I decided to secretly investigate Sean from behind. A few days later, the results of the investigation were clear. To put it plainly, he had been throwing away the lunchboxes I made almost every day. But that wasn't all. Sean had betrayed me in the worst possible way. I resolved to retaliate against him. One evening, as usual, I received the lunchbox from my husband when he returned home. I asked him about his thoughts on the lunchbox. "You've worked hard today as well. How was the lunchbox?" He answered with a smile. it was really delicious again today. Work is really tough. But just eating Amy's lunchbox gives me energy. Hearing that, I burst into laughter. Sean, seeing me suddenly laughing, was startled. Slightly afraid, he asked, "What's wrong?" It was inevitable that I would laugh. After all, my husband is saying the lunchbox was delicious when he hadn't even eaten it. The lunchbox was delicious, you say? Wow, you managed to eat it well, huh? I wouldn't eat that stuff even if I were paid to, do you know why? What? Sean was dumbfounded by my bombshell statement. Then, I told him the reason why I laughed. Because all the ingredients I used for the lunchbox were rotten. I always pay attention to the management of ingredients. But this time I wanted to try something and thought it was a good opportunity to use them. Hearing this, Sean had a shocked look on his face. Then he raised his voice in anger at me. Using rotten ingredients, what were you thinking? What if I had eaten it and gotten sick? What were you planning to do? Your way of speaking means you didn't eat the lunchbox, right? Even though you were proudly saying it was delicious just before. Well, that is? My question made Sean's momentum suddenly weaken. He looked around, breaking into a cold sweat and falling silent. Probably, he was trying his best to think of an excuse to give me. However, I wasn't going to let it slide so easily. As Sean panicked, I pressed on. Well, it's no wonder you didn't notice. You've been throwing away the lunch I made every day. And enjoying meals out with your affair partner. Tracy, was it? I can't believe you went after a junior at your company, your own trainee. Hearing this, Sean froze. He didn't expect his throwing away the lunchboxes and the affair to be discovered. While shaken, he tried to defend himself. I'm not having an affair. Then, I silently spread out documents on the table. They were copies of photos showing Sean and his affair partner, Tracy, getting along cozily. Holding hands, arm in arm, embracing each other. It was clear they were not just co-workers. Among them were also photos of Sean throwing away the contents of the lunchbox I made. In fact, I used to work at the same company as Sean, and we were colleagues. We started dating after becoming desk neighbors and got married a year later. When we married, Sean asked me to wait at home for his return. And I decided to retire for marriage. Therefore, colleagues who were close to me at that time are still working at Sean's company. I talked to those colleagues and asked about Sean. According to them, Sean recently had a female colleague he was unusually close to. It turned out that the junior was Tracy, his affair partner. Despite being married, Sean's closeness with another woman was suspicious to colleagues for a while. I was wondering if I should report it to Amy. My colleague apologized. But I didn't feel like blaming her. I understand it's hard to interfere in someone else's family matters. When I asked my colleague to get evidence of Sean and Tracy's affair, she gladly accepted. A few days later, she sent me plenty of evidence photos of Sean and Tracy's affair. They were careless, thinking they hadn't been caught, and openly got along inside the company. So it wasn't too hard to take photos. Additionally, I secretly installed a GPS tracker on Sean's cell phone. Then, it became clear that he was always dining out during the day. On days he said he was on a business trip or staying overnight at the company. It turned out he was staying at some hotel. Probably enjoying his time with Tracy. He had said before that a big project was going on at the company. But according to my colleague, there was no such project from the start. Sean also didn't seem to be rushed off his feet with work at the company. I had been deceived by Sean all along. Without knowing such a thing, I, who had been diligently preparing lunch for my hardworking husband, feel so foolish. Once Sean realized everything was out in the open, his complexion turned pale. When I told him, we need to talk about divorce now, he prostrated himself before me. I'm sorry. I was tempted. Sean was Tracy's mentor, and it seems he found her cute. She confessed to him, and he got carried away and accepted. Tracy knew Sean was married but still entered into a relationship with him. She demanded Sean prioritize her over his wife, me. The reason he was throwing away the lunchboxes was that Tracy told him, "Don't eat your wife's lunch," and so he disposed of them. Hearing this, my love for him cooled even further. The lunchboxes I had put my heart into were just an annoyance to Sean. Noticing my cold gaze, my husband desperately pleaded, "I'll break up with Tracy right away. I've had enough of her selfishness. You're the only one for me, Amy. Please, don't talk about divorce so lightly." That was the last straw for me. "You're saying that? You, who've been throwing away the lunchboxes I worked hard to make every day, just because of a word from your affair partner? Don't joke with me. How dare you try to take the moral high ground now?" "But, Tracy told me to." "But it was you who threw them away. Don't try to shift the blame to your affair partner. The moment you cheated, you were as guilty as she is. I'm going to divorce you and sue for compensation, so be prepared. Don't ever contact me again." I packed my things and returned to my parents' home. As I had declared, I divorced Sean and sued him and Tracy for compensation. He repeatedly asked for a second chance, but when I threatened to take it to court, he finally agreed to the divorce and compensation payments. Tracy tried to refuse the compensation claim, so I contacted her parents. Tracy's parents ended up paying her portion of the compensation in one lump sum. Tracy was made to quit her job by her parents and taken back home. She is now working at a relative's factory to repay the compensation her parents covered. Sean's affair became known at his company, and he's looked down upon by his peers. However, he can't quit his job easily because he needs to earn money for my compensation. He is enduring his work situation, which is uncomfortable, like sitting on pins. As for me, I returned home and am living a relaxed life. My parents told me to take a break for a while, so I plan to lean on them for the time being. My parents say my cooking is always delicious and enjoy it. The wounds from having my lunch boxes thrown away by Sean will heal in time. I plan to find a job again someday, but for a while, I'll enjoy cooking for my parents until I'm fully independent.